meeting.
We can hear you, Marge. I think it's
like all of a sudden everything went away.
If you try clicking gallery view in the top right, that might fix it. We can see you, Marge, and we can hear you.
Yeah, but that's weird when I can't see anybody else. It says meeting ID or personal link name. Meeting ID. Is there a meeting ID?
Yeah. Let me send it in 1 second.
No, don't send it. Just read it to me.
Sure. It's 995.
995.
Dash 42.
Dash. Whoops. Where's the dash at on the computer? Dash. Dash.
Should be next to the 0, I think.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna redo this.
Sure.
Right back. Oh, there it is. You guys are there. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
When I gave the 360 view of the room, somehow or other, it must have touched something on the screen. So anyway, I've been here ever since. Dallas is about to start giving a little bit of leeway for restaurants. I think they're going to open the mall, but they're going to count the number of people that go in and whatever. For me, I just hear and chant, and about 2 minutes away by car is a trail, and they didn't close the trail, and you can walk literally for like 15-20 miles on that trail. And I go out there for a 2.5 mile walk every day, come back and do a little keep busy like this. Keep busy. It's good. Dallas Temple, the doors are, the restaurant is doing the takeout, I think they call it. You know, they come and pick up the stuff. And but the temple doors are locked. They don't let anybody in. Deities are being taken care of nicely. And I'm being taken care of nicely. And the devotees seem to be okay. So that's like a little COVID update for here. So I guess if anyone, I thought the idea, I got this idea before because a lot of times if I just sit here and talk, I don't know, literally I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know who I'm talking to. So we did one of these for Austin, for the Austin devotees, and they put out a little thing for email questions. And we had it went really well. So I hope this goes okay for you all too. So I see there's 6 chat questions, and I don't know if anybody wrote any in before, or if anybody wants to raise their hand, or whatever you want to do. I'm cool.
Yeah, Marge. So for everyone, if you do have questions, I'm working on the form right now. Not really sure what went wrong with that. But for those of you who do have questions, you can just unmute yourselves and ask that question.
There's 6 chats. I don't know what that means.
Oh, I think that's coming from our chat, Marge. Like there's a group chat on Zoom. So yeah.
I guess everybody's really eager here.
Hi, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Do you mind telling us one of your favorite stories with Prabhupada?
Favorite stories with Prabhupada. Well, I joined in 75. By the time I joined, he was pretty much like surrounded by the GBC and sannyasis, temple authorities. And so I only actually saw Prabhupada give class. I never sat down and had a personal discussion with him. But I did one time. I was in Hawaii. I was buying round the world tickets, 29 stops. I would get 29 stops. As long as you were going west, you could stop. As long as you're going west, they didn't count. They didn't care how many stops you went. So I stopped in Hawaii because my friends Shruti Kirti and Tejo Prakash were at the temple there. So we went to the beach for Krishna. And then I asked Shruti Kirti, because Shruti Kirti was living in New Vrindavan when Prabhupada came there, and he was milking cows. And so Prabhupada's massage person got sick or was missing, so they got Shruti Kirti to come and give Prabhupada a massage. And because he milks cows, his hands were like super strong. I mean, New Vrindavan had like 25, 35 cows, and so he was super strong. When he gave Prabhupada a massage, he said, bring him with us. And so he traveled with Prabhupada for several years. So we were on the beach for Krishna, and I asked him, I said, without thinking, when I say Prabhupada, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? And he said, he is the most practical person I ever met. The Prabhupada was a very practical person. He wasn't dogmatic, he wasn't fanatic, he was strict, he was lenient, he was open, he was firm, he was soft, and he guided people according to the way they needed. I just saw a nice video, of a very close friend of mine, Mother Yamuna, the cookbook Yamuna. She and I became very close friends when she was living with a friend of mine. And she said one time that she used to cook for Prabhupada a lot, and she was living in Vrindavan, and her consciousness wasn't in very good shape. She said that due to the internal politics that's everywhere in the world, she was feeling a little discouraged, so she didn't feel like her consciousness was good enough to cook for Prabhupada. Then Prabhupada called her and said he wanted her to cook. And so she made this special kind of chapati, but it didn't turn out right, or the consciousness wasn't right. So Prabhupada said, have Satsvarup Maharaj teach you how to make chapatis. So he took her into the kitchen and he was describing, she went through the whole narrative, what he said to do like this, do like that. And he rolled the chapati out and put it on the frying pan. They have a word for that in Hindi or India. And the little blisters on the bottom of the chapati all burnt. And then he turned it over and cooked it, and he stuck it on the flame, and it didn't even puff up. And he took it in and gave it to Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said to Yamuna, you should learn how to cook chapatis like this, which means it wasn't even a proper chapati, it was just the proper consciousness. So Prabhupada's, our consciousness is meant to be to serve Srila Prabhupada in the proper way. And I do have memories of being with Prabhupada, being in the kirtans with Prabhupada and listening to the classes. We were on the 7th canto at that time, or he was on the 7th canto. I don't even think the 7th canto had come out. I don't think it had even come out yet. And Prahlad Maharaj, and I remember him going around and then I remember him, I just saw somebody that I know, waved at him. In Mayapur, the Lotus building used to be the temple room. I think they have dioramas or something there now. And the deities were like at the end, and you could walk around the deities. There's a way to walk on, just like there is now. You could walk around, and Prabhupada would ring that bell. Oh, that was such a joy. Devotees literally bouncing off the ceiling. We were all quite revved up in the time. But the main thing is that going back to the question is, I think it was Aditi. The first experience I had was when I read Prabhupada's books and how much of an impact it had on me, practically on an instant impact on my conscience. It was just like, I just said, okay, this is something real. And so I thought the person that wrote it has to be really real also. That's just a little something. There is one story, because I was in Calcutta with the temple president, Amarendra. I don't know if any of you know Amarendra or not. Very, very, very advanced soul. He went to law school and he took care of all the legal issues for ISKCON for years, still is. And we went shopping. When we came back to the Calcutta temple, Prabhupada was sick at that time and they needed some Ayurvedic medicine. So we made it from the Calcutta temple to Mayapur in 2.5 hours. I don't know if anybody's been to Mayapur before, but from the Calcutta, not even the Calcutta airport, but the Calcutta temple, the driver was whacked. I mean, the guy was whacked. I never seen anybody drive like that. And he knew a back route. We were on these little village roads where there weren't even any shops or anything. And we got there, and all I'm thinking, I'm holding on to this. Amarinder's holding on to the seat so he doesn't fall out of the thing. And I'm holding on to all the medicine. I'm thinking, okay, when I'll get to walk up and, hey, Prabhupada, here's your medicine. And as soon as we got to Mayapur, there was about 50 sannyasis, what would you say it, in a riot, trying to grab me and get the medicine so they could be the ones to bring it up to Prabhupada. And so, anyway, at least I had the adventure. Next, Yash. Is Yash there? I see a Y.
Yeah, I'm here, Raj. Sorry, I'm just looking at if there's a question. So there is one question from the anonymous questions. It's saying, how do we avoid wanting to drink when we're in an environment where that isn't fun? Is it wrong to try it?
What should we, can you please repeat that?
Sure. How do we avoid wanting to drink when we're in an environment where that is fun? Is it wrong to try it?
Well, is it wrong to try it? Yes, it's wrong. But the temptation will always be there. Maya is very tricky. She gives the illusion of happiness. There's an illusion of happiness in this world. And we're also, even though we may be aspiring devotees to whatever level we are, there's always going to be the temptation. And so to intoxicate the body, I mean, one of my friends, maybe Prabhupada, actually it's on a Prabhupada lecture also. What is the need of intoxication when we're already so intoxicated by our false ego, right? We're already like fully intoxicated. Like if you get intoxicated, unfortunately, I did those things when I was in college prior to joining the Hare Krishna movement. And you literally end up doing things you would never normally do because your what would you say, your moral compass goes out of whack, everything goes out of whack in that sense. And but the point was, we're already so intoxicated, we're already so much misidentifying ourselves as something that we're not. Why not work on getting back to our original identity rather than taking us into a perverted identity of our perverted identity? Now I know the forbidden fruit. I mean, it's just like right now, prior to the COVID shutdown, I was just sitting in my room every morning, waking up early, taking bath, sitting down, doing my puja, picking up my japa beads, chanting my rounds, doing my emails, doing my work and stuff like that. But now that they say that I have to stay in the house, I don't want to do it. I want to go out. It's just like for me, I can fast any day of the week, except on fast days. When I wake up on a fast day, I'm always hungry. I wake up in Jamasane, I want the feast when I wake up. I don't even want to wait for 12 o'clock at night because we're supposed to fast. And so those things that we are told to be on the restricted side, we always attempted to do that. But I'll give you an example. Just like right now, we have COVID-19. Is anybody tempted to go into an area where there's COVID-19 if the people that are there are apparently having fun? If you could walk by a non-social distancing, non-mask wearing, non-hand washing party, and the people could look like they're having a blast. But would you enter into that party? Would you actually enter into that party knowing that the chances of you getting the COVID virus are greater in that environment than if you don't go into that environment? So when the COVID virus first started, I have a thing. And if you send Aravind your phone number, I can add you to my morning. It's not always the morning, it's daily. I'll say daily, 2 or 3 minute, little something on chanting japa or a little something on Krishna consciousness. It's only 2 or 3 minutes. I send it out every day. So when the COVID lockdown came out, I told the devotees that they should follow all the protocols that are given for the COVID virus. You know, social distancing, wash your hands. And that time they weren't saying wear a mask, but all my doctors, and there's dozens of them in the Hare Krishna movement, told me to wear a mask and to avoid it. So I told the devotees, everyone right now is doing so many precautions not to get the COVID virus. But there's also another virus out there, which is material pleasure, material sense gratification, material attachment. And this virus is more deadly in one sense than the COVID virus, because the COVID virus, everybody knows it's out there, but the material sense gratification virus that's impacting everybody, everybody thinks that that's actually a good thing. And that's the amazing thing. So if we have knowledge that certain things will lead us away from pleasure, why would we enter into that? Is it wrong to try? It's hard for me to say no. I mean, it is wrong. It's wrong. We just don't. It's like, why try something that can make you addicted to sense gratification? Why try something? You know, you try this, and what's one else? What else are you going to want to try? People have so much fun doing so many crazy other things. Now, most of the devotees would never want to eat any kind of animal product, but you see so many people out eating animal products and supposedly enjoying. So why is that line so easy to maintain, but the other one is so tempting? We have to actually analyze it. Just like the Gita 5:22 says, Yehi Sangsparsha Boga Dukkha Yonana Evate, that an intelligent person doesn't engage the senses in the object of the senses because he sees them as a source of misery. And the source of misery is that when we engage the senses in the object of the sense, then we become attached to that. If you go out and you have one drink and you have a little bit of fun with your friends and you feel no immediate physical or spiritual after effect, you'll do it again. And then if you don't feel it again, you'll do it again and again and again. And as we repeatedly do these kind of things, they become habits. And once you become a habit, it can become an addiction. And once it's addiction, it's very difficult to overcome. Almost impossible to overcome. And so, yeah, please tolerate. It's you know, just see it as, if you see your friends trying to enjoy that way, you should just see it as the COVID virus. We'll call it the SG virus, sense grad virus, or we can give it a name, and know that it's actually deadly. It's actually deadly. Does that help? Oh, that was a write-in question. So that's a basic answer. It's amazing how subtle Maya's energy is. I mean, it can just trick us into thinking something's pleasure when it's actually poisonous. That happiness in the mode of passion, in the mode of goodness, it may be a little difficult or a little bitter in the beginning, but it produces happiness at the end. Passion, maybe a little happiness in the beginning, but misery at the end. And then you have happiness in the mode of ignorance, which is miserable in the beginning and miserable in the end. And that's what intoxication does. It's miserable in the beginning and miserable in the end. I can attest to, unfortunately, I can attest to that fact. Harini, hi. Is that okay, Yash?
Yeah, thank you so much, Maharaj.
I'm trying to condense my answers because I tend to just like go on and on. I want to make 50 different analogies, but I know there's a timer on this. So.
No problem, Maharaj. There's actually another writing question. It's a little bit of a long question, so I'll try to read it twice. To what extent are we culpable for the actions of people we vote for? or who we work for / serve. So like that's the first part of the question. And then the second part of that is, do we incur sin for actions our leaders commit if we are a bystander in the action? And then the comment of it was, I'm not sure how to be socially responsible when it seems like nothing we do individually matters and those in power will commit sins regardless.
Okay, let's go back to the first one, okay?
Mhm.
Say the first one again.
Sure. So to what extent are we culpable for the actions of people we vote for or who we work for or serve?
Okay. I didn't vote. I just couldn't find anybody to vote for. So there's certain things, if some devotees, I mean, there's every single political party in the Hare Krishna movement. I mean, some people are Democrats, some people are Republicans, some people are independent, some people are Green Party, some people are this. Actually, one time I did what Brahmatirtha. I don't know if you know Brahmatirtha, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, Bob Cohen. So he works for this, he's on the city council, he's on the city planning board, he's a mediator for the police department. He's just fully engaged like that. So he had a particular candidate that he wanted to be mayor. So he said, you got to go vote. So I went to vote, and I got into the voting place, and there was nobody there. And so I was dressed like this. It was like a 5-minute walk from his house. And they said, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And I said, I don't know. The one guy said, I don't think he's a Republican. And so they took me over to the Democrat booth, and they said, nope, he's not a Democrat. So they looked through the Republican. He's not a Republican. So they looked through the independent, and they found me an independent. I didn't even know how I got there. I was independent. So they gave me this little folder, and I went up to vote for the person Brahmatirtha wanted me to vote for, but he wasn't an independent, and it was a free, what do you call it, primary, like a pre-election thing, and you can only vote for people that are in your party. So I just told him I couldn't do it. So anyway, that's just a story about me voting. But the idea but the idea is that it's very difficult. So if you can find someone that most closely resembles a person that would be more religiously principled for the things that are major things in our life, you could probably vote for that person. And the question is, are we held responsible for that? And are we held responsible for the people that in our jobs? Was that part of the question?
Yeah, so part of the question was do we incur the sins for people who, do we incur sins for actions our leaders commit or the people that we work for or serve?
Yeah. There's one verse I just read today. Tomorrow I'll finish my 25 pages. I'll finish the Gita tomorrow. It's like a real victory for me every time I do that. So today it's described that it's described either as understanding or intelligence, because Prabhupada uses that word 2 different ways. One way in the translation and one way in the purport. And it said that one who's not attached to auspicious or inauspicious activities, because everyone has to work in this world. And so whatever we have to do, there's so many things that we have to do that we may not want to do in the material world. But, everybody can't sit on the top of the Himalayas and just chant Hare Krishna and eat fruits from the trees. And so the idea is that even Arjuna had to perform his duties. And so the auspicious part is he's serving Krishna, but the inauspicious part is that he's having to kill so many warriors. And so when we dedicate our lives to serving Krishna and utilize the fruits of our labor to serve Krishna, and that can be according to many different ways. I break it down to even if you have your house and you put the deity in the house and the deity is served on a regular basis, and everything that you eat is offered to the deities, then all that income that you're spending for those things is actually part of your devotional service. and that is part of the fruits of your labor, which is described several times in the 18th chapter. And so because the Gita explains in that 18th chapter that one is not held responsible for the sins if one is working within his dharma. If you're a Brahmin and you're doing Brahminical work, and you're a Kshatriya and you're doing Kshatriya work, and you're a Vaishya and you're doing Vaishya work, and you're a Sudra and you're doing Sudra work, and you're doing that work in conjunction to Krishna, then you're not implicated in that activity, because the activity itself, there's nothing you can do in this material world to not commit sin. It's absolutely impossible. So we have to understand, and other part of I'm assuming it's employees or the people that we work for and stuff like that. I actually, when I was reading that verse today, not attached to auspicious or inauspicious works, I was remembering one devotee. I think he's in Houston. I can't remember. Anyway, he's the manager. He's like he manages this one company for the company, I guess you can say. And sometimes part of his job description is to entertain clients, and he has to take them to meat-eating restaurants and drinking restaurants and shows and different things like this. And he was very concerned about being implicated. And I was trying to explain to him that's part of your job. And, you don't have to give that up. And so when I was reading this verse today, not to be attached to the auspicious or inauspicious nature of a particular thing as a sign of Krishna consciousness. And as long as we're devoting that to Krishna, then we're not actually held totally accountable for it. But if we whatever we don't offer to Krishna, then we become part of that. So that was the first half. And the second half of the question was?
Sorry, I'm just pulling it up one more time. The second half
something
was
about social, and not being able to make social changes.
Right. So do we incur sin for our actions our leaders commit if we're a bystander in the action?
It depends. If one can, see, there's a nice purport in the Gita. I have to think of where it's at, where Prabhupada says that devotees aren't involved in social and political activities. They're not so much involved. No, he did. Even after Prabhupada wrote that, he started the In God We Trust party. He started a political party. Balavanta Prabhu was he was a GBC for the Southeast United States at the time. And later on went to law school also and does law work. And he ran for mayor for Atlanta. He wore a dhoti and a sports jacket. And Hare Krishnas were a little. we didn't have the. I would say that the proper attire for that. And so Prabhupada said that two things. He started the In God We Trust party, but in the purport he says that we don't get involved in social, political ideas and things like that. In other words, if we can make a little bit of difference, a little bit of change in somebody's heart, we do it. But we're not going to go on a campaign to save the whales or to save this or save that, because the problem's there's no material problem. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada said that the only thing lacking in this world is God consciousness. It's not that the Republicans are in charge of the Senate and the Democrats are in charge of the representatives and the judges are this and the president's that and the country is this or that. That's not the problem. The problem is lack of God consciousness. And if we can get, probably, I was just read like 3 or 4 days ago, Prabhupada said that even if just a certain percentage of people have enough intelligence to understand the principles of Krishna consciousness, that will suffice to make the world a nicer place. And so better than social and political things is to be involved in giving spiritual direction to people. If you're in school, if you're in your office, whatever you can do to, what would you say, share Krishna consciousness with is much, much better than something else. Now, if there's some type of, social injustice, or what would you say, child abuse or spouse abuse or what would you say, someone that's offensive in the association of devotees, then we take a stand. But other than that, I mean, I still have social issues that I fought for when I was in college. I was a little bit of a feisty person, but I dovetailed it in the service of Krishna, because we know that Krishna consciousness is the actual cure for all the ills of the world. So, I mean, if you see somebody suffering and being beaten or something like that, sure, step in and try to help them. It's actually, I mean, I think I did that at TSI in Tawako. I think I was explaining that if somebody comes into the room and starts violating somebody in the temple room, and I just sit there, I'm a Swami, I'm non-violent, I don't do anything, and that is a violent act not to respond to some if I can at least prevent a little bit of something from happening. If I just go up and just take the guy down, take the guy down, right? Take the guy down and beat him up and remove him from the temple, that's an act of nonviolence, because that person is actually a criminal, and to help the devotees out is actually the proper thing to do. Good question. Thank God I was I think I was in a different place. I couldn't vote. And the problem is, I mean, I always think every time there's a political campaign, I always think, is this the best two people we can come up with out of 400 million? I mean, it just seems like we could come up with somebody with a little bit more intelligence than the 2 or 3 that we get.
Thank you, Raj. The next question is, what is a
Before
good
you
way
go,
to...
what time does this go till? 8:30?
Yeah, 8:30 Eastern.
Okay.
So we try to do it around 8:15, and then if it bleeds over a little bit, it's okay.
Okay. Just want to make sure, because I don't want to. I try to condense my answers, but it's always so hard for me. It's just like,
No problem, Raj.
I'm a blabbermouth.
So yeah, the next question is, what is a good way to balance school or work with Krishna conscious life?
Depending on your workload and depending on your study load. What I've been telling people lately is that, because remember I told you before at TSI, I'm a TED educated fellow. And so I saw a TED maybe a year or 2 ago, and it was about there's enough time to do the things we really want to do if we just prioritize our time. To prioritize our time, and then if we make you can even make a list. What's important to us? You have to spend 8 hours sleeping, and then 2 hours in maintaining the body by eating and cleaning, and so that's 10. And then you got to 8 hours, 10 hours of work, so now you're at 20. And then you got, say, 2 or 3 hours left. So you prioritize that. What is important to us, and then we engage it according to the priority rating. I always try to encourage people to prioritize for chanting Hare Krishna and reading Srila Prabhupada's books and stuff like that, because this is an essential part of our life. I actually, for me, because my life is just Hare Krishna. I mean, I'm very busy, but I'm busy for Krishna, and I can adjust things. A lot of people have to go to an office at a particular time and be there, and can't adjust. And so I often wonder how people if I had to drive, of course I did. I drove an hour and a half every day to my Sankirtan spot and drove a hour and a half on the way back. But we had always 2 or 3 people with us, and one would be reading to everybody, and everything was like super Krishna conscious. But to mold our life in such a way that we can always remember Krishna is a good thing. And so it's just a matter of prioritizing. And if you can prioritize some time for Krishna, Krishna will Now there's two types of speculation. Mental speculation is not bona fide. Philosophical speculation is bona fide. So here's a philosophical speculation. If Krishna is time, in the Gita, in the 11th chapter, he says, time I am. In several other places in the Gita, he says he's time. In the 10th chapter, he says time. In the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, he describes how he enters the universe in the form of time, activating the modes of material nature. And so if Krishna is time, if we give a little time to Krishna, then Krishna can arrange time to like facilitate our Krishna consciousness. In other words, if it would normally take you 2 hours to do a homework project, if you have dedicated or are focusing on trying to give some time to Krishna, Krishna can make that project only last an hour and a half and give you, and you'll have a half hour. You'll have a half hour to do it, or your work assignment can be minimized to a lesser degree. It's just a philosophical speculation that Krishna can help that way. That which would take you longer if you weren't Krishna conscious, and that would, and how much it would take if you were Krishna conscious. I don't know if there's a way to do any kind of like data on that, but I'd like to see it. But prioritization, and to see what you really want from life. What do you really want from life?
Raj, so I actually think that Harini has a follow-up on this question. So Harini, do you want to just unmute yourself and ask that?
Oh, yeah. So I was just asking, like going off on the theme of work, how do you handle choosing a career that you are passionate about and inspired by, but it might not give you a typical Krishna conscious lifestyle? So it's not a 9 to 5, 5 days a week job. And then going into that, is it wrong to love your career and find value in it, or should a job just be a means to practice our Krishna consciousness?
Well, when we read the scriptures, it says that one should just live for the bare minimum of life. But I don't want to say. I mean, I have read that several places in Prabhupada's books, but it's also. I would actually have to say, again, prioritization. If there's a way to do that, in other words, if you're unhappy in your occupation, how are you going to be happy in your on the spiritual side, unless the spiritual side is so much enriching that the other part is just like, it's just like, okay, I got to do this for I have to do this to get this. I'm out of my, I have to sacrifice this, rather than sacrificing the spiritual side to get some happiness on the material side. We can just balance that out, and then really examine. And I'm sure there's some older or advanced devotees that may be in the same career that you are inspired by, and see how they Krishnaize their life, how they're able to Krishnaize their life in that situation. I know I have a friend, he's vice president for, I think it's Toshiba or something. I don't know which one it is. Which one's in Korea? A Korean company? Whatever it is, doesn't matter. I took a TED on how to give a speech, and don't worry about the details. So anyway, he's vice president, and he's flying, I mean, I don't know, to Korea, and he's in charge of America, he's in charge of South America, he's in charge of Brazil's part of South, he's in charge of Central America, and he's always flying. He has to fly over to Europe. He's always on the go. He's just like 24/7 on the go. But in his free time, he literally reads, chants, worship. He has a little Giriraj Shila. He takes them with him. He offers everything. He makes an offering to the deities every day. He has a little bag of dried fruits and nuts. And when he goes out for the meetings, he has a baked potato and a salad, like every other Hare Krishna that has to go to a meeting. And somehow or another, it was a great opportunity for him. I mean, he has no college education. He joined the Hare Krishna movement when he was 18. He went down to Puerto Rico to open up the Puerto Rican Yatra, and all he had was about $20 and a pair of cartels and a verdanga and 2 or 3 sets of clothes. And then ended up getting married and had 3 or 4 kids. And then next thing you know, you gotta chop wood. And all of a sudden this, he got recognized for his, because he speaks Portuguese, he speaks Spanish, he speaks English, and fluently. His wife's Brazilian, he's American, and he lived in Brazil. He managed Brazil for years, so he speaks Portuguese, he speaks Spanish, and somehow or another, he Christianizes that thing that he's actually an empowered manager. He's a very empowered manager type person, and so somehow or another it worked for him. Actually, there's a part of the Gita that says we have 2 Swadharmas. We have our material Swadharma, meaning occupational duty. And so we have 2. We have a spiritual occupational duty and we have a material occupational duty. And Srila Prabhupada says it's really nice if they can, or he didn't use the word nice, it's good if they can be blended together. But if they're not able to be blended together, then somehow or another, Krishnaize it to the best of our ability. So I would say for you, Harini, is that examine that career that gives you inspiration and see how you can fit Krishna consciousness into that situation. I think that I know you're quite intelligent because I worked with you quite a bit and I've been with you quite a bit. And I actually feel that not even feel, I actually see that you could figure out a way to manage your Krishna consciousness, especially as you get a little older and that desire for Krishna consciousness becomes a little bit stronger, and the need for that de-stressing and finding out that Krishna consciousness and the practices of Krishna consciousness are a very good way to de-stress. Practically the best way to de-stress. I feel you would be able to find that. And if not, you can just do the scale: material happiness, spiritual happiness, material happiness, spiritual happiness, or
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Maharaj.
Also, if anyone else has a question on the chat that they're not putting in the anonymous question form, feel free to just raise a hand and then we can go bounce back and forth between the form and the Zoom chat, just as a reminder. But in the meantime, there's another question on the form. And it's, in this day and age, almost everyone around us has significant others. Is it right to have a significant other that isn't part of ISKCON and might even have opposite views?
That's such a hard situation, isn't it? If the heart, that's not my heart, if the heart falls in love, what are you going to do, right? One time, I think I told you guys this at TSI. I was driving down the road listening to NPR. I had one cassette, heard it like 50,000 times. So I was listening to NPR. That's a good excuse, right? You're not guilty as hell. Anyway, don't want to take responsibility for my sins, but like everybody else. Anyway, I was listening to NPR, and there was a rabbi, what do you call those, like a cardinal or bishop for the Catholic Church, a Baptist minister, all these different people, a sociologist, psychological person, and they're having just like a discussion. And one of the points of the discussion is, you recommend marriage within the tradition that you're born in. In other words, we're in Hare Krishna. Someone's born Catholic, one of the Jewish kids, and every one of them said that it's a very difficult, I don't want to use the word difficult. I like to change my words. I've been corrected by my politically correct people. Very challenging. It's very, very challenging to, especially when you have kids. Are they kosher or non-kosher? Are they vegetarian or non-vegetarian? Are they allowed to go out with other people? It just one person's mind's over here and one person's mind's over there. And in order for it to really, really, really work, and hopefully it doesn't break down once they're children, because this is what happens. Once there's children, every person, be they male or female, go back to their roots. We just go back to our roots, because that's where we find security. We find security in our roots, that which we found. That's what we, be it good or bad. If our roots were bad, we find that, and we want to avoid that bad for our children. If it was good, we want to give that to our children. So either way, it works. And so we automatically go back to our roots when we have children. So if one is going to do that, I always recommend just try to find Hare Krishna. You know, there's plenty of them out there. Hopefully they're nice. And so take the premarital test. There's premarital tests that will establish long before the wedding what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And of course, there has to be give and take. And if the person is a Hare Krishna and they're marrying, you know, an apostle, what do they call it, apostolic, Pentecostal, born again, whatever, that's just fundamentally off the track, or you know, whatever, atheist or whatever, you have to come to you know, total like understanding of what's going to happen in the marriage, and what's not, what I'm able to accept within this relationship. And if I am able to accept certain things, then you own them, and then you can't go back on that. You have to own that, even at the point when their children are involved. And sometimes I think I remember a little bit that they said that it's a little difficult for the children too, because they become a little confused. Like I know a lot of the Hare Krishnas, when they join the movement. Now a lot of you are both your parents and your grandparents may be devotees, but when I joined the movement, actually my mother one time, she called me up and she said, I know I'm not supposed to talk to you, but we made a deal. We wouldn't talk about Hare Krishna, and she wouldn't criticize Prabhupada. She wouldn't criticize ISKCON, wouldn't criticize Krishna. I wouldn't preach to her. We just made it a deal. So she said, I know I'm not supposed to talk about this, but I just want to bring up one thing. And I said, what's that, Mom? She said, I don't want you to get married. And I'm the only one in the brahmachari, and I'm the only unmarried person in the ashram, boys or girls, that parents telling them not to get married. And I go, whoa, why? She said, having my son as a Hare Krishna with a shaved head and a ponytail, wearing robes, running around the country, running around the world, I can barely take it. But if I had grandkids like that, it would be too much. I just don't want you to get married. And so we had a lot of the devotees that joined the movement, and their parents were non-devotees. And so they had children, and the children would be exposed to the grandparents, and the grandparents couldn't understand why they can't eat meat, you know, why they can't watch movies. Of course, nowadays people watch movies all the time, but back then we didn't watch movies. We didn't even read the newspaper. Maybe the headlines when we walked by the stand or something. But the point is, it's like make sure it's crystal clear. Crystal clear. And I can honestly say, I'm just going through the list. Let me calculate here. I know several Hare Krishnas that have married very, very nice people, vegetarians, religious, tolerant, and at a minimum of Hare Krishna. And each and every one of them, every one of them has come to me, the devotee has come to me and said, that is really missing in my life. The bondage of me and my husband, or my husband, me and my husband, or my wife, and I want to make it both ways. My husband and me, and my wife and me, we're not on that point of Krishna totally. And I don't have anybody to explain. When you're married, you need a release valve for your emotions, your stressors, when your mind is disturbed, you need to have the confidentiality of that person that you can be totally confidential with, and they find that is missing. And they say that that's the only thing that I can think. They'll tell me he's a great husband, she's a great wife, but they're just not devotees, and that little thing is missing. Sorry, that one took a little long, but actually they've all taken a little bit long, but that's just something I like to emphasize. I'm not saying that not to do it. I'm just saying that my experience is that, and it's not that they're unhappy in their marriages. These people are not unhappy in their marriages. They just feel like the Bhagavatam in the introduction says, in the material world, there's a little pinprick, and so there's a little pinprick in the marriage. And then sometimes a lot of, if they have what we call discussion, say maybe a little argument or a little bit of a dispute, then the one that's not a devotee will say, well, you Hare Krishnas all think this way, so what was I to expect? So we have to take these kind of things into context.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is a little bit long as well. How can we ignore the temple congregation devotees' comments when they see a girl singing with her guy friend who is leading kirtan? I have been in a situation in the past where I'm singing backup for a friend of mine who is a guy doing kirtan, and the devotees at the temple congregation have made comments about the two of us, saying that it's not right and why is she singing with him?
I'm very liberal, but not 100%. Tend to go that way. It's amazing because remember Gunagraj Maharaj, he passed away in 2018, and I was in India. I was attempting to help those who were helping him, and then they had a kirtan festival at the big Delhi temple, Greater Kailash, I think it's called, Kailash, whatever that temple is. And they were having a big kirtan festival there. And there was one Western devotee, really good kirtaneer. I don't know, for some reason, I don't know why I don't know this person, but he's like one of these real, like, he's got the Indian ring, whatever, on the pinky or the, it's totally like Indianized Westerner, and his wife is Indianized Westerner. I think they're maybe a European or something like that. And they're sitting side by side in the Delhi temple doing the kirtan, and they're all surrounded by all the brahmacharis, and all the ladies are all laying around the edge of the wall. And nobody said anything to him. I mean, that he was his principle. My wife's going to just sit next to me. Now, it depends on, like when Rome do as the Romans. But I would say, I don't know which temple it is. I probably shouldn't know which temple it is, because then I'll probably call the temple president and so on. But anyway, no, I would never do that. That was a lie. But work it out with the management. In other words, if you have permission from the management, then why worry about what other people have to say? It's a managerial decision. It's not a congregational decision. It's a managerial decision. And is it right or wrong? Is it right or wrong? I've often thought about this. Or it's going to be a long answer. When I went to church as a kid, I had an older sister, and my mom and dad we were between my mom and dad. I mean, if I did something wrong, when I left the church, my feet didn't touch the ground. My dad would be just like, I mean, it's like we were with our parents. We were with our parents. Our family was together. And when you get to the Hare Krishna temple, all the ladies are on one side, all the men on the other side, and the kids are running back and forth trying to figure out which parent they want to be with. And one time I told Ananda Vrindavan, actually I wanted to do this in Alachua, ask all the families to sit together, to have all the families sit together. I think I brought this up at TSI too. And so Ananda Vrindavan, about a year and a half later, I was staying with Gopinath and Ananda Vrindavan and Raj Bihari. And I said, you know, one time I was thinking, we should just have the family sit together rather than having the kids like windshield wipers running back and forth from mom to dad to mom to dad to mom to dad and crying in between. Why don't we just have the family together? So Ananda Vrindavan said we had Mother's Day, we had Father's Day, and this week we're going to have Family Day. And she makes an announcement that we're going to, everybody please sit together as families. Practically nobody knew what to do. They didn't even know what they should move or not. And so I'm a little liberal that way. I think that there has to be, Bhaktisiddhanta had a curtain down the Pandal, and the men were on one side and the ladies were on the other side of the kirtan. But that was Bengal back in the 1800s. This is America. We're meant to preach to Americans. It's not just to become an Indian congregation, although I love all the Indian devotees. They're all wonderful, but our idea is to expand Krishna consciousness in America. And if you have, gender bias in this country, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Your preaching won't matter. The expansion of Krishna consciousness is stifled from that. So I gave my purport on families being together and this and that. But what was the gist of the question? Did she say is it right or wrong? What was?
Yeah. So the gist of it was like, how do we ignore the temple congregation devotees that are commenting on like seeing that and thinking it's not right?
I gave you all those four agreements. Impeccable speech. Don't worry about what people don't have your best interest in heart. Say about you, always do your best. And what's the fourth one? No assumptions. Don't assume something. Speak in such impeccable speech. In other words, speak in such a way that people know where you stand and what you're standing for, so they don't have to assume something else from you. They don't have to speculate. They don't have to let their mind wander. And if somebody doesn't have your best interest in heart, doesn't actually understand your situation, and they say some comment, what value does that comment have? Now, you can take a good instruction from a fool. So you have to analyze the comment that they make and see, is this actually a valid comment? And if it is, then absorb it and utilize it. And if it's just some kind of gossip or just some type of something that is not valid, then just ignore it and always do your best. And if you want, and that somebody makes a comment, invite them over for dinner, set them down, and say, here's my stance on why I do kirtan with my friends, be they male or female. We'll do it. Have an open conversation. My guess is they're probably so conservative they probably couldn't hear the conversation, but that's just another thing. Don't worry about people that don't have your best interest in heart. I've told you this before. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "No one can make you feel inferior if you don't give them permission. If you give them permission to make you feel bad about what you're doing, but you don't think what you're doing is actually bad, you have the approval of the temple authorities, so you know that it's okay in that temple, then don't give them permission to make you feel inferior. Don't let them give permission to make you feel insignificant or wrong, because it's not that way." I just do like this to say that, okay, I better stop on that.
No, thank you so much, Raj. So I think we'll take one more question, and then we have a couple announcements to wrap it up. But for our final question, and for those of you whose questions we didn't get to, we'll try to have like a way that you can ask Maraj, and we might even have like a part 2 to the seminar. If you're willing, Maraj, we can try to set that up.
I'm always more than willing to be with you to give me life.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we'll try to set up a part 2. So there's actually a lot of questions coming into the forum, which is really nice. So we'll host a part 2 for that as well.
Sure.
But this question right here is, while being understanding and compassionate of youth who want to experiment at this age, how do we create a culture of not encouraging these activities?
How do we create a culture? Well, the culture we live in is so predominant. It's very difficult. What age group are they talking about?
So I'm not particularly sure, but it does say like potentially, as it is potentially at TSI or other youth communities. So probably targeted at the youth.
Okay. So the question is how to encourage. Say it again, because
Yeah, so it's how do we create a culture of not encouraging these activities?
Yeah.
Experimentation.
Okay. I have an idea, and that would be if you are in favor of not encouraging these types of activities, find like-minded friends of your same age or younger or older, even maybe get a mentor involved that the youth think is approachable, and set a really wonderful example of how not experimenting with social ills, sinful life, the things that can cause harm to us, even materially, and set an example and spread the word. In other words, one of the questions was before is like, are we if someone's doing something and we can do something, are we socially responsible? So the kids in the congregation that are up and coming, the older youth are responsible for them, and the elders of the community are responsible for them. And so if you can take that burden and a burden of joy actually on your shoulders to help create a team that would actually promote these kind of things and give these kids some kind of clean fun. Just like a TSI, it's pretty clean fun, I would say, pretty clean. I mean, we push the envelope a little close sometimes when we're staying up 2 o'clock in the morning and down there with all the guys and trash talking and stuff like that. But I mean, pretty much we can keep it within the boundaries with them and give them good association where they can have at least fun in the mode of goodness. If not trends, it's not pseudo-sattva fun. At least not in the mode of passion or ignorance. At least keep them in the mode of goodness. And you'll find if you can get a good team, you'll be strengthened by that team. Your determination, your confidence in your principles and your desire to advance in spiritual life will manifest from that. The best way to learn is to teach. The best way to learn is to teach. And if you can teach some of these young people or your friends and have a group of kids that are actually showing some inspiration in the process of Krishna consciousness, even though there's so many difficulties within our society, it's a great benediction you could offer. I'm seeing, I remember at TSI, I said, TSI is run by the youth, for the youth, run by the youth, camping night for the youth, by the youth, Koshori Yatra by the youth, for the youth, summer trip for the youth, by the youth. Now the whole Festival of the Holy Name in Alachua, that whole team just made this huge Festival of the Holy Name pandemic kirtan thing that's being seen in 100 countries around the world. They've hit 1 million. What did they tell me? 6 million or what? I don't even remember what the number is. It's just so many people are taking advantage, and it's run by the. Gaur Shakti, he's one of them. Govinda Sire, Neela Madhava, they were all my Gurukul boys when I had an ashram in the 90s, and now they're all professionals, and when, of course, they got a little bit of free time now during COVID, but Gaur Shakti's not at his dentist's office, and Neil's not out selling real estate, and so they have a little bit of time to do it, but they got it together. They just grabbed it and they just took it to the next level, and they have kirtan going around the world 24 hours a day during COVID-19, with the purpose of just giving people relief, and just like the yagya at Naimisharanya, where they performed 1,000-year yagya for the benefit of the whole universe, not just for that particular people that were there. So I would be very inspired to see any of you take up the banner of, having a good experience in Krishna consciousness that surpasses the experience that you're trying to seek out in the material dungeon.
Thank you so much, Raj. So with that, yeah, thank you again for answering all those questions. They're wonderful answers. And then for everyone's question who we didn't get to, we'll try to cover that in like a part 2. And if you do have like a private question that you want to ask, feel free to send that as well. With that, I'll pass it off
I think everybody has my email, rtswami@gmail.com. I gave that out before. Also, if you want to get that little daily reminder, is Arvind still on? Arvind,
Yeah.
if somebody wants it, would you be willing to collect anybody to have and send me them?
Sure.
If you'd like to get those, just send your number to Arvind, and Arvind will pass them on to me, and I'll pass them on to the person that puts them online.
Or, I mean, you guys could also send it to Yash if it's easier. So me, Yash, or Aditi, and then we'll just get you on.
I just like to get Arvind because I've known him since he was like 2 years old. How old are you? You were a baby, weren't you?
Yeah.
You still got that sword I bought you in China?
It's somewhere in this room.
He was a real kshatriya when he was little. Sorry to embarrass you. Or hopefully it wasn't embarrassing. It's just love.
No worries.
Sorry.
All right, awesome. So for everyone who's asking in the chat for cell phone or email, I'll create like a form right after this, and then I'll send it in the group chats. That way we can just collect everyone's form a little bit, or their numbers a little bit easier. And again, like Maharaj just said, if you want to email him, I put the email in the chat as well. So if you have a private question that you want Maharaj to answer, feel free, like he was saying, just to email him. And then I think with that, we can turn it over for announcements.
All right. So I think everyone should be able to see my screen. I just put our webinar survey in the chat, so you should be able to see it. And if you go ahead and fill that out, you'll be able to pick if this time doesn't always work for you, you'll be able to pick a different time or find something that does work for you. And we may be able to move our weekly webinars around that and just get some more information on what you are hoping to get out of these. Our next webinar will be announced as soon as possible. And we have a newsletter that came out 2 to 3 weeks ago that is really amazing, and it's on our website, as well as an internship that's deadline is in 2 days. So you still have a little bit of time. It's a UN internship, and it's pretty cool. It just aims at exploring ISKCON's UN position and women empowerment and things like that. So if you're interested in that, you can find more information on our website. And past recordings are on our website as well. Basically, everything you need is on our website. And if you have any trouble remembering anything or don't remember the email to reach out to Maharaj, feel free to message us on Instagram and we can help you out. But I think that's it. All right. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Oh, I'm very happy being here with you all. I was talking to Arvind earlier. I said, if I get to see everybody, can I see everybody? I haven't seen anybody for so long.
Yeah, I think what we'll try to do next time around is we'll actually have people turn on their videos. So we've been telling people to leave it off for now because of the signal, but it seems like it's been working decently well for quite a few people. So I think next time we'll try that out so that we can have everyone's faces there.
That'd be cool. I was really happy when I got to see a few of you. RNE, and I don't know who else I saw, Arvind. Yes.
So for everyone else also, we'll do a part 2 to this seminar, and we'll try to do the Q&A. There's almost about 20 other questions that we haven't got to, which is really nice. So a lot of people have questions, but the answers have been so great. So thank you so much, Maharaj. And with that, we'll wrap it up here, and we'll let you guys know for our next seminars. Right, well, everyone. And then thank you again, Maharaj.
Okay, thank you. Love you all.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.